Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Anime King, and today I'm going to be giving you part 8 of What If Naruto was the direct descendant of the Sage. Remember to get this one to 200 likes as usual, share this to all of your friends and social media platform, and also stay in tune for What If Naruto awakened the Yellow Rinnegan after his exile over on Anime King 3. Link will be at top of the description for you guys to enjoy. And remember, if you're new, to go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and your support. Remember to comment down below and tell me if you're new. I'll be replying talking back to all of you. So yeah, what do you say without further ado, we begin this new episode. Start the intro. So, the last time we left off, after dealing with the Taki ninjas, Naruto, Fu, and Shizuku made their way, as Fu had wanted to accompany them on their journey. Seeing that she just left Taki and she didn't really know where to go, so she went with them. As they made their way and they stopped by, there was an underground passageway. Seeing that it was nightfall and rain was falling as they went down there, as Naruto was cautious seeing what happened the last time. Going down there though, they didn't find much, as Naruto spoke about Orochimaru, which a mudman had told him about, as Fu knew that name, as she was directed to learn everything, all about the missing ninjas in the bingo book and everything. S-rank missing nin from Konoha, as Orochimaru lab was down here, as Naruto and Fu find some information even about the mudman, and one of them was about the second Hokage mixed another water affinity to make a powerful water user. And Shizuku always saying that she's cursed wherever she go rainfall, as this file had something to do with her, as Naruto took it, but he's not ready to tell her anything yet. So with that, they continue on with their path as they made their way. They end up stopping near Waterfall Village. As they went inside, there was a lot of hot springs, as Fu and Shizuku went to check out the hot springs and enjoy themselves, as Naruto went as well. There he met a white-haired pervert, as it was none other than Jiraiya, but they didn't interact for too long as Naruto ended up pushing him over towards a hot spring part, where the girls were, and with that he left. Came back to the hotel. Naruto had remembered what Jiraiya did, as he tried to perform the summoning, and he heard something in his mind. Path. It was then that Naruto learned that he could summon, as he accidentally summoned Fu towards the hotel, completely naked. On their way, Naruto found that he could summon things, and things that he didn't, think that existed when he summoned them. They had the Rinnegan eyes and he could control them and he could even see through their eyes. As he ended up summoning a salamander, but the salamander was actually talking. As the salamander was surprised as he told Naruto he would have to talk to mom for being able to summon them. Shizuku had lighted the animal and picked him up and placed him on her shoulder. So with that, they continued on with their journey, not noticing that a small toad was watching them. As they made their way to our village, where Naruto was attacked by a girl. Her name was Shizuka, as Naruto ended up subduing her. Getting back to where they were going to stay, she told them that she was from the Netsuko village that was cursed by the sage. That is why she knew about his Rinnegan eyes, as a sage had placed a curse on them when one of their members tried to fight him a long time ago, and they would not stop, even though he told them that he would not marry any of them. So he placed a curse on them that they will always have girls. So it was their clan tradition, if they were beaten by a man, they were supposed to marry him, as Fu found herself getting rather irritated by this, as Naruto told her that was the stupidest thing that he has ever heard. So yeah guys, so basically that's what I thought. You guys can switch across to Bliss Injector for yourself. So let's begin this new episode. Jiraiya was giggling. He really loved Yuninakune, as he was looking through a telescope. It was his favorite place for gathering vital research. That's right honey, complete goal. He quietly giggled to himself before his viewing was interrupted by a poof of smoke. He placed on the telescope and looked toward the small toad. Jiraiya-sama. The tiny toad spoke with a surprisingly deep voice. Huh? Gamasupai? What are you doing here? I asked you to keep an eye on that blonde kid to look for signs that if he's Minato's boy. The toad nodded. I know, but you have a standing order with all toads to report you if you run into any Kunoichi from Netsuko village. Jiraiya paled slightly at that. He didn't have the best reputation in that village, and he still had a bet to settle with their leader. Well, he lacked an apprentice at the moment. Not that he planned on taking one anytime soon though. He sighed. No, Gamasupai. Only if the Kunoichi was near me. Where did you spot her? The toad looked up proudly, as he was an information gathering toad, and he was always ready to share information with the summoner. Shimon no Kune, said the toad. Jiraiya sighed once again. And where are we now, Jiraiya asked. The toad took a quick look around, used the most location after spying for Jiraiya so much time. You no Kune, he said. So tell me, how do you plan to get back to Shim no Kune and spy on the kid, Jiraiya asked. The toad looked down as he felt ashamed. I had not considered that. Jiraiya sighed. He loved the toads, but sometimes they can really be stupid. Oh well, I'm sure I'll run to him sooner or later, especially if it's Naruto. If he's out here, I'm sure it's for a good reason. His words were full of confidence, but internally it was a different story. He was worried for his godson, but he could hardly drop what he was doing, currently looking to urge more possible activities in the land of hot water, as he wondered what was going on if Naruto was just wandering around the elemental nations. Meanwhile, what? How dare you mock my culture and tradition? At this point, the only thing keeping Shizuka from lashing out at Naruto was the lingering effect of the paralysis that he placed on her. That, and the fact that he beat her with surprising little effort. As Naruto didn't look affected by her rage. In fact, he looked like he wanted to sleep. Look, all I'm saying is that I don't want this, and you obviously don't want this. So why don't you just leave and pretend that you never saw me in the first place? Who would know otherwise? If anything, Shizuka looked more indignant about that, as multiple tick marks appeared in her temple, and her face turned rather red. I may not want this, but I'm a proud Kunoichi of the Netsuko village, heir to the main line. If I don't follow and uphold our traditions, then what kind of example does that set for the others? Naruto sighed as he ran a hand through his hair. He felt his eyelids starting to fall. Shizuku and Fu wasn't looking much better, as they all were tired and wanted to get some sleep. The good one for standing up to the outdated, idiotic rules, said Naruto. Shizuka's eye twitched violently hearing that. Keep insulting my village tradition, husband or not. I will make sure your head ends up on a pike somewhere. Naruto's eyes focused, as he didn't want to fall asleep around this girl. Wow, you'll be a fine leader someday, if this is how you negotiate, said Naruto. I am starting to think I should have just lost, so none of this would have happened. Shizuka agreed with that, as she crossed her arms under her chest and nodded. Yes, you'd be dead, and I would still have my freedom. As Naruto nodded before he paused. Wait, let me get this straight. My options were winning and become your husband, or lose and die? Shizuka simply nodded. What kind of choice is that, Naruto asked? Shizuka simply frowned at him. It is the greatest honor to become a Netsuko, Kunoichi's mate. It means we acknowledge you as the strongest warrior. If you lose, that means you're too weak to be a value of any warrior, and you may try again in the next life. Naruto hung his head with a sigh. He had never met someone besides Sora who could get under skin like this. Maybe she was destined to be his wife. No. Back on track. Are you even listening to yourself right now? Do you have any idea how stupidly barbaric that sounded, Naruto asked? Of course, this only makes she quiver in rage as her glare intensified. What about asking the guy, or at least warning him about the consequences beforehand? He then saw something appear in her face. Hesitation. I was supposed to. She looked down, but I saw your ring gun, and I acted rashly. As Naruto's eyes softened, she didn't look like the proud Kunoichi she once was. Look, maybe if we go to your village, we can get all this straightened out. She looked up, blinking back the single tear that had been gathering in the corner of her eye. What's stopping me from just trapping you there when we arrive? Naruto blinked as he stared at her. Once again, I believe you'll become an excellent negotiator. Shizuka sent a glare his way, but he didn't have much venom like before. Where's your village anyway? This time was Fu that spoke, as her tone was rather cold as she was staring at Netsuko Kunoichi with distrust and dislike. As Shizuka looked over to the east, in the warmer part of the country, as Naruto ran a hand through his hair as he stood, as snow was falling outside. Alright, we were heading towards Kaminari Kuni anyway. I suppose we can make a small detour so we can get this all dealt with quickly. For now, we should get some rest. I don't think we'll make the journey as we are now. As Naruto's Shakijo came around his top, Shizuka right on his shoulder. Hey, what are you doing? She asked. Insurance. To make sure you don't kidnap me tonight or something. Now get some sleep, it should wear off before we leave tomorrow, he said. Shizuka, I twitched once again. Should? Naruto simply shrugged as he shuffled into a comfortable position. I haven't quite perfected it yet. It will be anywhere between 7 and 12 hours tops. as he fell into a blissful sleep after that. Time skip as Jiraiya was making his way down the road. He had a small frown on his face. He ran through the events from a few days ago, thinking about that young blonde he ran into. If that was Naruto, then what are you thinking, Sensei? I was alright, we'd let him stay at the temple. At least we'd be safe there without the hatred of the village. But just letting him wandering around? What the hell is going on? His thoughts were interrupted as a small toad appeared, around the size of his thumb. Gaminrin. What's the word? Did you find Naruto at the temple? The toad looked down that small frown. I'm sorry, Jiraiya-sama. I could not get into the temple. They would not admit me without your presence, and I could not get around the barrier. I was unable to find out if Naruto was still there or not. Jiraiya sighed as he offered the toad a small, crumb-sized chunk of chocolate. It's alright, that seal is one of the strongest in the Kuni. It will take at least an S-rank shinobi to break through it. I can't exactly go all the way there myself, and Gamasupai lost their trail. One of my clones wouldn't make the journey either. I don't have the chakra to maintain one for that long. As he grunted in irritation, fear for his godson's safety if it was really him wandering around the nations. The more he thought about it, the more certain he was that the little, whiskered, Minotaur-like was the real deal. I have to think about this. You can go now, said Jiraiya. The toad gave a small nod before disappearing to smoke. Time skip. For the second time in a week, Naruto woke up with a scent that he was now familiar with, as Fu was snuggled in his arms. When he stirred though, her eyes opened slightly, as she looked at him with a small smile. The happy look on her face had him at a loss, as he just stared for a moment. Good morning, Naruto-san. Naruto sighed tiredly, a small smile appearing on his face despite his better judgment. Fu, why are you sleeping next to me again, he asked. Her smile did not disappear, which made him feel glad, happy? He wasn't sure, but it was definitely a nice feeling. He didn't want Fu to go back to that emotionalized persona that she was wearing since leaving Taki. Shizuka took up one of the beds, and I allowed Shizuku to take the other. I hope you don't mind. As Naruto felt something, I sensed there's something more than that, he said. She looked away, a small blush appearing over her bridge of her nose. Naruto's sand is very warm and she looked back up. As Naruto focused on her orange eyes, perhaps it was his favorite color, but the eye just seemed to draw him in. When I slept with Naruto-san before, I did not wake up early. Okay, said Naruto. But try not to make the habit, okay? He tried to appear comforting, but it came off far too awkward. Fu just looked down, but she was still happy that Naruto didn't deny her from doing it again. She couldn't explain to herself, but all she knew, in her entire life she has not woken up her approved time. She slept in. It was when she was beside him, and he was cuddling her into his warm body. Not to mention it was one of the best and most comfortable sleeps in her life. Time skip, a few hours later in the group. Plus, irritated but cooperative Shizuka was making their way. It had continued to snow through the country, so Naruto had resummoned the salamander to keep Shizuku warm. Fu was too stubborn to admit that she was cold, while Shizuka didn't seem like she was affected, as she was adapted to the cold. As Shizuka had expressed interest into the salamander when she found out that Naruto did not have any contract to summon him. However, Naruto didn't have much to tell her about, despite that it was a recent ability that he just found out about. She had gone back to ignore the entire group after that, preferring to hang back. As Naruto kept that on her though, to make sure she didn't try and think stupid. Fu moved over to his side, as Shizuku was currently talking towards a small reptile. Why are we going along with this? Would it not be simpler just get away from Shizuka? You had already proven that you can defeat her. As Naruto looked at her, I probably already make enemies out of the sand and Taki. And as this encounter has shown us, my eyes are probably gonna cause me more problems in the future. As he looked back at Shizuka, who was glaring at the ground as she walked, I don't need more enemies than necessary, especially if it's a group of highly trained and angry kunoichi. As he shivered for a moment at that, some kind of male instinct to be cautious of in-range females. Plus, this girl recognized my eyes almost immediately. They might have more information on the sage, like his abilities or even where some of his possessions are. As he looked ahead, it's an opportunity one can't afford to miss. There is too much I don't know about my eyes. These eyes that might one day save someone precious to me. As he smiled at Fu, enjoying the slight red that permeated her cheeks. And what if the village is not understanding and force you to go through with this engagement? Naruto shocked as he waved her concern away with a single hand, although the doubt was still in the back of his head. You know me, I'll just leave if you come to that. We'll see if they try to stop me. Fu nodded, but she never left his side, as his fire chakra was so warming. Time skip, and there it is, Netsuko village. Shizuka said, as she had full pride in her voice. It was a rather impressive size, built like a fortress. The buildings themselves looked very traditional, with bridge connecting the three giant hills. Nice, Shizuku said, as she whistled at the sight. She thought it was beautiful. Shizuka simply huffed. She thought her village deserved a whole lot better than just nice. Alright then, lead the way, Naruto. She turned her head and started to walk. It only took a few minutes for them to reach the first gate, but they were met by a tall woman with a skirt that was cut in the front to reveal red shorts and bandaged legs, as her torso and her chest was covered by a red vest, with a yellow cloth around her waist. Deep red lipstick and black hair, with stern features. Tokiwa senpai. As Naruto looked toward Shizuka, as she sounded rather, polite. The woman in question let her gaze roam over the small group, as they linger on Naruto with narrow eyes for a moment. As Naruto's face was returned to his usual smile, with his eyes squinted, so that his Rinnegan could not be seen. Shizuka-sama, your mother was very worried about you. It was unwise to leave the village without an escort. Shizuka looked down like a child, like she was being berated. Now tell me, who are your companions? Shizuka looked up with her mouth ready to open, but her head dropped. The blonde is Naruto. He defeated me in combat. The woman raised her eyebrow. Shizuka was one of the most promising and upcoming kunoichi in the village, while the boy barely looked 12. I see, the woman said, as Shizuka head dropped further in shame. The woman's tone was now cold and indifferent, and her eyes were studying Naruto, every single inch of him. It made Naruto feel a bit uncomfortable. I would very much like to hear how someone so young defeated one of the village's most promising kunoichis. Naruto chuckled as he rubbed back of his head. However, right now we should see your mother and tell her about this. Naruto didn't like the way that she paused. They walked through the village was rather uncomfortable for Naruto. Every sight he saw was a woman. He only catch a glimpse of the occasional man, as many whispers, and they were directed towards him. And some of them wondering if Shizuka had finally managed to find a husband. And most of them, mostly about him. As they made to the third plateau in the village that seemed to house the main family, Tokiwa made quick work guiding them until they entered a room lit by candles. There wasn't much, just a bed and a few pieces of furniture. Lying in the bed was a old woman. Despite her grey hair and her wrinkles, still possessed an elegant beauty. As Naruto could tell that she was leader of the village, she had the same feel about her that the Hokage had when he was back at the village. Shizuka, my child, I was worried about you. The girl bowed her head in respect, as Naruto could tell that they didn't have the ideal mother-daughter relationship. Mother, she said a formal bow. The woman gave her a simple smile. Must you be so formal, Shizuka? She didn't get a response, so she turned her head and looked towards the rest of the group, especially Naruto, as her gaze roamed over him, finishing with an approving nod. And who are you, young man? If Fu and Shizuku was annoyed at being, ignored, they did not show it. Fu just had a cold expression on her face, while Shizuku was looking at the furniture. Naruto was cut off as Tokiwa put a hand over his mouth, silencing him. He defeated your daughter, Hisori-sama, Tokiwa said. The woman raised an amused eyebrow as she looked between the two, as Shizuka mumbled something. Is that so? I thought it would be many more years before I saw someone capable of besting my daughter, and one so young. Naruto ducked under Tokiwa's hand, smiling politely at the leader. I think there have been some misunderstanding here. I had no idea about your rules when I defeated Shizuka. The girl in question nodded, as she hoped for a way out of the engagement. Yes, I can't marry him. He bear the Rinnegan. The entire room froze. As Naruto winced, he was hoping to avoid that piece of information, as he found Tokiwa, and the leader gazed on him. Mainly his eyes. Is this true? Naruto chuckled as he took a step backwards, only to be blocked by Tokiwa. Well, it isn't not true. As he opened his eyes, as the leader gasped a bit. So the legend held some truth. In all honesty, I never thought I'd see the legendary Donjutsu in my lifetime. As the old woman stared at Naruto's eyes for a moment, before she smiled. Well, no matter, the village law is clear. You bested my daughter in combat. Now she's your bride. Naruto blinked as his hand shifted on his shakijo, as he frowned. Look, I really don't have time for this. Neither I or your daughter want any part in this marriage. It will work out much better if you just let us leave peacefully. The old woman looked at Naruto in amusement while Tokiwa looked on, impassively, but she was a bit irritated to the way Naruto was speaking to her leader. That almost sounded like a threat, boy. Naruto's gaze remained on her, as she turned to her daughter. Is this true, Shizuka? Do you not wish for this marriage, despite the village laws? Naruto sighed in relief once she saw their daughter was against it. Then yes, they would get this matter sorted out. All eyes turned towards Shizuka. No, mother. I accept the marriage as our tradition dictate. As Naruto looked at her. What the hell? As she walked out of the room, and he turned to a full-blown run as she headed off. The room was silent as Naruto rushed after her. He was not stopped by Tokyo. Hisari merely chuckled to herself as she was reminded of her time with Shizuka's father. She strode angry through the village, uncaring where she went, as long as it was away from her mother. Tears were at the edge of her eyes. She refused to make them fall as she blinked them away. It was her damn fault. And now she was stuck in this tradition, and it was too late for her to become the leader and change him. Shizuka. The happy call nearly broke her heart. There was only one person it could belong to. Sajiri. It was a boy her age, as his hair was tied up in a ponytail. Simple brown shirt and tan pants he was wearing. He rushed over as he took her hand. She felt her heart jump. It's not true, is it? The rumors about you returned to the village with a boy. Shizuka wanted to say something, she wanted to cry out that it wasn't true. But all she could do was hang her head in defeat. I see, the boy said, as he hung his head a little, enjoying the brief contact with the girl he loved. I can't believe it finally happened. You succumbed to the village rules. She looked up, the tears falling. It's not my fault, Sajiri, as he broke away from her, his fist trembling. If nothing, Shizuka, I loved you, and I thought you loved me. She could only stand there, tears streamed down her face, but she did not cry out loud. We were supposed to change things to finally break away from these rules. He was cut off though as a third voice cut in the conversation. Hey, Shizuka. Sajiri looked over towards the young man, before looking back at the girl, as she looked away shamefully, as he turned with a mix of anger and sadness in his face. So you're the one that defeated Shizuka? Sajiri was no fool, he was a simple merchant. If this boy was able to defeat Shizuka, he would lose without much effort. You better treat her well. And with that he made his way off with his fist clenched at his side. Who was that? As Shizuka glared at Naruto before running after the boy. As Naruto took a deep breath. This whole village is crazy! She finally caught up with him. Well, she wasn't really running, as she wanted to find something to say to him. But when she saw him and he turned towards her, look in his eye, heartbreak and pain. Please, Shizuka, I think I just need to be alone right now. She grabbed his hand as he turned, but before she could say anything else, a harsh laughter echoed around the trees. Instantly, she was on guard. Well, looky here, Marui. If it isn't one of those Netsuko chicks. A man dropped down from a tree canopy, as he had on a Kumo headband, but there was a slash through the headband, so he was a rogue ninja. I think you're right, Lori. I heard if you beat one of them, they have to marry you or some shit like that. Another one dropped, with a slash to his headband as well. It was clear they just escaped, or they were stupid enough to stay near the border, as they were looking at her with a rather sick look in their eyes, despite being twice her age. Shouldn't be too hard. After that Samui girl shut you down, I think you'll be itching for another girl right now, right? The dark-skinned one said, while his companion shot him an irritated look, as if that bitch couldn't handle me. But enough bickering. You kill that brat over there. I'll take the girl. She rushed forward to separate his head from his shoulders, but she had jumped back and blocked a kunai that would have killed Sajiri. Ah, do you see that, Marui? She's protecting her little friend. Listen up. If you come with us quietly, we'll let the coward go. Shizuka said nothing as he glared at them. Sajiri was standing there, as he was petrified by the killing intent they were leaking. But it wasn't hurting Shizuka. She's not intimidated at all. Maybe we need to give her some incentive. Immediately, the two of them rushed at her. She blocked the first attack, but it was only a ploy. When he dived back from her feet that was cased in wind, Lori had grabbed Sajiri as he had a kunai at his throat. Shizuka froze as she looked at a weapon glinting near his throat. No, please let him go, I'll do anything, she said. Marui grinned viciously. No, that's what we like to hear, he said. Unfortunately, you still have a bit more fire than I like in a girl. I'll have to fix that. He looked over at his partner, who brought up his hand and brought the kunai down. But Sajiri poofed away. You know, I thought Shinobi's had a shred of honor, but taking an innocent, just to kill them to break someone's will, that's too far. As he turned to see Naruto standing there, Sajiri was standing there with smoke dissipating from his body, as he stood there confused. Hey, who the hell are you, shrimp? Naruto chuckled darkly as he clenched his hand. The both of them slammed into the ground by their weight increasing. He didn't let up until the both of them blacked out completely. He sighed as he ran a hand through his hair as he looked at Sajiri and Shizuka. Shizuka rushed over and tackled Sajiro into a tight hug as she started to cry in his chest. I'm so sorry. I nearly lost you as she mumbled more words. As Naruto smiled at the scene in front of him. Time skip. Thank you, Naruto. Oh, it's no problem. I was just in the right place at the right time, he said. As they were standing at the gates in Niseko village, Shizuka had her arms wrapped around Sajiro. She hadn't let him go since coming back to the village. No, you helped me realize I don't want to live my life without Sajiro. If you had not come along, I might have lost him. And I might never have had him in the first place. Naruto gave a kindly smile as he looked towards the leader, waiting for her retort. But the older woman just gave him a smile as she chuckled into her sleeve. Oh, you didn't actually expect me to make my daughter join in a loveless marriage, did you? I might have the best interests of the village in heart, but I'm not heartless. Anyway, you saved my daughter from a terrible fate. For that you have my and my village's thanks. Naruto just gave another small nod. Honestly, he just wants to get the hell out of here. Touching moments or not. I'm glad to help. Sorry, simply smiled as she coughed in her sleeve. Naruto was surprised that she made it out of her bed, as she was ill. I want you to have something, young monk. As she reached into a pouch, withdrawing a headband, with a fade, looking black cloth. The metal plate itself had no markings on it, with two horn-like spikes emerging from metal. This used to be a sign of the greatest male warrior that Netsuko used to have before the sage came along. I want you to have it. As Naruto took it to wide eyes, it was mostly incredibly valuable, but he felt like he might break it just by touching it. Thank you, I'm honored. As he placed her on his head, mostly hidden by his unruly hair. I know I can't speak for my predecessor actions, but if I ever understand these eyes enough, I promise I will come back and undo what he did to your people. She smiled as she patted him on the back. Then you have my even greater thanks. So with that, Naruto and his group started to leave, waving at them. Well, we didn't have to fight our way out in the end, said Fu. Yes, otherwise, he would have to marry everyone in the village, said Shizuku. Hey, don't even joke about that, said Naruto. Shizuka, behavior was enough. Time skip. You're lost again, aren't you, said Fu. As there was a heavy mist around. I'm not lost. And don't say it again like this happened before. We were not lost, I was just reading the map wrong. By wrong, do you mean upside and down? Shizuka said. Well, they couldn't really see each other fully, because just seeing a few feet ahead of you was really impossible because of the mist. It was quite thick. It was an honest mistake. I'd never been to Commander Kone before. As Shizuku just chuckled into her sleeve as Naruto wondering how she was doing with the cold. Yeah, and this keeps up. I'm starting to think that we still aren't. As Naruto glanced at the sky, he couldn't even see where the sun was. Come on, Konoha isn't a forest. It even have roads leading to it. Why do all the other hidden villages have to take their names so seriously? The sand is in the middle of a desert. Taki is nearly impossible to find unless you lead there. And Kumo is hidden so high in the mountains. You either get lost in the mountain or pass out from the thin air. After a few moments of ranting, he realized what happened to his wise monk persona. Don't worry, Naruto, we'll have to get there somehow. How would the merchants get there? So we'll find it eventually. Naruto smiled appreciatively as Shizuku rested her hand on his shoulder. Well, he thought it was her. Actually, Kumo is a mostly military hidden village. All merchants and others are made known in the lesser villages. The village itself is purely made for housing shinobi, their families, the equipment stores, and the Raikage Tower. Said Fu, her knowledge on these things, well, she had a lot of them, as she was forced to study a lot about the other villages after all. Can't you find chakra sources in the fog with your eyes? No, there's something about the cloud here that just bounces around the chakra. Everything just looks like a big haze. Said Fu. What about summoning something to fly us over the clouds? As Naruto turned his mouth open before he closed it. That is actually an excellent idea. As he blinked and wondered, why hadn't he thought of that sooner? As he molded his chakra. Summoning, he said as he slammed his hand down. The small explosion of smoke pushed the mist away, giving them a glimpse look of what Naruto had summoned. What the heck is that? Shizuku said. For the most part, looked like a bird with great feathers, but it was 10 times as big as an average hawk, and its beak looked like a drill more than a mouth. I have no idea. I just thought for something that would be able to carry us. I never thought of any specifics. The creature had the ring on eyes, meaning it didn't exist naturally. Well, it will do for now, he said as he jumped on the bird back. Come on. As he looked at the spike impaled in the creature's neck. Black spike. That's weird. It looked like a chakra rod is implanted here. But I never saw this thing before. Fu hopped up next as he grabbed onto the spike, so she wouldn't fall off. Well, it makes a good handhold. As Shizuku flipped on as well, she could swear that the thing was looking at her intensely. Naruto wasn't sure how to get the thing to move, but as soon as he thought about that, the wings started to beat lifting the creature up in the air. With each flap of the thing's large wings, the mist would blow away, revealing the road. Hey, why didn't you use your wind manipulation just to clear the cloud away? Naruto glanced towards Shizuka. It's a little late for suggestions. Anyway, with the amount of chakra it would take to do such a thing, we would have Kumo shinobis on us within seconds. We want to try and keep a low profile this time around. She snorted in her sleep. Nothing they did was ever low profile. The group burst from the clouds, wincing as the sun hit their eyes. White fluffy clouds stretched out as far as they could see, like an ocean of just pure wool, as towering mountain tops could be seen, like they were climbing to the sun. Whoa, that summed up their thoughts at the moment. Naruto started to peer at a nearby clustering top. It was the closest and tallest, as he spotted the glass wrapped around it. Hey, what do you know, we weren't that far off. Probably only a few miles away minutes if they make it on the bird. Of course, them landing right in the village with that summon would be suspicious. From full description, Naruto didn't picture Kumo to be all that welcoming. We'll land over there, he says, he pointed towards a rocky platform. It was close enough they wouldn't get lost, and far enough that most sentries wouldn't pick them up. A few minutes later, they climb off the bird, which poofed away. Shizuku trembled slightly. She could swear the thing shot her another look before disappearing. Time skip. As they made their way. As they were making their way, they were stopped by a group of Kumo shinobi, a young man with blonde hair, leading them. Stop. How many closer we will have to arrest you for suspicion of infiltrating Kumo? Naruto smiled pleasantly as he moved his staff away from his body. It's alright, we're just travelers, looking to see the sights and resupply. The young man looked at Naruto for a moment, before nodding with a shrug. Alright, you're telling the truth if you lie. Your chakra would have been disturbed. As Naruto raised his eyebrow, well, leaving the sensor type so there was a good idea to sense anyone coming from the village from afar. We will escort you to the village entrance, but be warned. You will be under close surveillance. Anything we find suspicious, a Kumo shinobi will not hesitate to apprehend you and your companions. Understood, the man said. Now, please, follow me quickly, we have to get back to our patrol. As they start to follow behind him. So what's Kumo like? He glanced behind him. As he turned back, it's the most powerful village in the elemental nations. There isn't a better place to be from. Naruto smirked, because that wasn't biased at all. The rest of the journey was made in silence as they emerged on the cloud bank, as he gawked in surprise for the second time that day. Kumo was beautiful despite being up on the mountains. The people adapted perfectly. Buildings were built out of the mountains themselves, offering protections, by giving it a perfect view of the surroundings as some of them were on the top. Long sturdy bridges stretched between them, as combat shinobis were ready, darting a route. As Fu had said, there were not enough civilians out here, mostly shinobis. In the middle of it all, wrapped around the highest terrain, with the kanji for lightning metal around it, clearly the Raikak's tower. It sat like a jewel in the middle of everything, shining. As Naruto noticed a few of the windows on the floor were broken, like someone had thrown something through them. She looked at their all faces as he proudly looked at his village. Impressive sight, isn't it? He chuckled slightly as he turned to leave. The trio were in the hands of the Anbu now, who'll be watching from the shadows. Well, okay. Where to first, guys? Naruto looked at his two companions as he could feel the chakra signatures hiding, watching them. Food. The both of them said same time. As Naruto smiled. Okay, food it is, he said. Time skip. Okay. I'm off to find some place I can earn some money. As Fu waved him off. As Shizuku was there, she waved as well. As she was currently going over a scroll as she was trying to find another way to mix it up with her water pillar. But without any other studies or books, she didn't know what else to do after that. Good luck. Just make sure not to run into the village in Julki right away. Shizuku said, giving him a smile. As Fu looked up with a smile as well, remembering their first encounter. Naruto looked amused as he stepped out of the temple. Come on, I'm not that bad. So what if I ran into two Jinjulkis in their respective village? It's not like it's going to happen everywhere. Shizuku, giggling in her sleeve as she waved him off, returned to her scroll. They had been in Kumo for a few days now, under the hospitality of the elderly priest, who was half blind from his age. Naruto was certain the old man was only allowing them to stay because he seemed to have mistaken Naruto for someone else, despite his constant reminding the man that he was not Todoroki. He stepped out of the building as he placed a hand up to block the sun for a moment. Up in the mountains without any cloud coverage, the sun was brighter than normal. He supposed that was the only reason why the mountaintop was not cold. Storms and breeze, cold breeze was up here. It was the reason why every building had a lightning rod on the roof, to redirect nature and harness it as power. As he was walking through the shopping district, he already been through here once, when they walked through to get acquainted to the village. There weren't all that many shops, but they were high quality. And, for shinobis, He figured he could earn some money, cleaning or tidying up one of the stores. But he ended up lost in his way. He had no map, so he walked over to the nearest person. Hey, could you tell me how to get to the merchant district? The woman that he spoke to looked around with just a hint of annoyance. From her posture, could guess that she was a shinobi, and the headband helped as well. As her foot was tapping on the ground, it was clear that she was waiting for someone. As she raised her eyebrow towards the monk. Huh? You're actually talking to me. You must not be from Kumo. Naruto blinked at the odd reply. Is there any reason I shouldn't talk to you? The woman smirked as she leaned in closer to him, a predatory look in her chocolate eyes. Oh, they're selfish, she said. As she leaned in closer, her voice becoming a whisper. But you shouldn't worry about those. She leaned back with a smirk. You're too easy, kid. Gotta be more careful or some girl's gonna whine you on your little finger. As she grinned again, looking like a cat playing the mouse that she has caught. That is if I don't beat them to it. As she ran her tongue across her lips. As Naruto saw canines, pointed once. Right, the market. The woman simply laughed. As Naruto looked over, she had sandy blonde hair pulled into a ponytail that was wrapped up at the end with bandages. She was wearing a tight top, purple, covered by a simple Arun sash. She had prayer beads around her right arm and fingerless purple gloves. That way, honey, she said. As Naruto gave a small nod. Thanks, oh, wanted my name so soon? You know it's polite to give yours first, she said. Right, the name is Naruto Uzumaki, he said. She smirked as she leaned back against the building. Yujito, or you can call me Naisama. Either is fine, she said. Naruto nodded as he took a careful step backwards. Well, thanks, Yujito-san. As he turned and went off. Kids are so much fun, she thought. Time skip, a few days later, as Naruto was sitting cross-legged down a mountainside. It was a training ground but looked like a random plateau carved from a mountain. There was a single pear tree hanging to a rather steep drop down below. As Naruto liked it, it was peaceful, as it was over the mist. If he looked down, all he saw was an ocean of pure mist. It was nice to be somewhere it wasn't raining, that he didn't have to force to circulate fire chakra just to stay warm. He flinched as a stray arc of electricity burned his hand. At the moment he was working on his lightning manipulation, the technique involved passing a current through his fingers. Then, as his control got better, he separated his fingers more and more, giving it a longer way to pass the current. But lightning was a rather unpredictable element to control. He could only keep his fingers about 2 inches apart. Any more than that and he would lose control, and it burned him. As he did it once again. Ow. Hey, who are you? As Naruto looked up, a young dark-skinned boy. He was wearing the traditional Kumo uniform, as he had a lollipop sticking out of his mouth, as he looked rather bored as well, with a sword slung over his back. But from the way he moved it, it seemed like he wasn't readjusted to it yet. Oh, hello. I'm a monk from Hinokuni. I'm actually practicing lightning manipulation, so I thought what other place is better than Kumo. He said it jokingly, but he was taken aback by how serious the boy became, as the boy jumped down as he crouched towards the floor. Monks learning jutsu? But what if all the monks become powerful? Then attack us shinobis because we kill for money sometimes? Then what if I accidentally seduce one of the monks' daughter, and she had to choose between her temple and her love with me? We run off together, but we're hunted by both monks and shinobis, and we fight back, kill the leader of both sides, causing instability in both factions, causing the collapse of society as we know it. He looked up as he was afraid. As Naruto blinked. Was this guy crazy? Well, that is all his concerns, said Naruto. As the shinobi nodded, he was still thinking about this alternate world of his. As Naruto continued to do what he was doing, as he winced in pain again as he was shocked, the dark-skinned boy snapped out of what he was thinking, looking towards what Naruto was doing. Oh, I remember having to do that. Be it Sensei never gave us any help. Well, he might have. But given the way he talks, it's hard to tell sometimes. As he walked over and crouched down beside Naruto. Yeah, I got stuck around here too. It was Samui Teiko that figured it out. On the first. She always does. He looked off into the distance and Naruto thought he was going to go into one of those rants. What you're trying to do is control the lightning. Except lightning doesn't like to be controlled. It lashes out. Instead you have to imagine your fingers as a point for the currents to travel through. Like a lightning rod. This way you don't try and control it. You simply guide it along a certain path. It's kinda like tricking it. Naruto looked up as he was surprised at the helpful advice. He looked down as he circled the lightning chakra as he moved his finger apart. He was shocked, no pun intended, as he moved them apart and still keep the stream going. As he grinned, looking up with a thankful nod. Thanks, but why are you helping me so freely? The boy shrugged as he readjusted his sword in his back. It's no problem, I just remember how frustrating it was when I was doing it. I'm a moi, by the way. As he held out the hand, Naruto took it and shook it. Amoy stood up as he shifted his sword once again with a roll of his shoulders. Anyway, you should wait until you see the second stage of lightning manipulation, as he grinned like he knew something Naruto did not. Amoy! A voice then called out. As Amoy eyes widened in fear. Nice meeting you, Naruto. I have to go now. As he leapt from the plateau. Seconds later, a third pissed off shinobi, well, Kunoichi, slipped down from where Amoy came from. She had spiky red hair. She wore the standard, except she was wearing a long skirt, as she had striking gold eyes. Hey you, blondie, you see a white-haired dopey looking guy come through here? Might have exaggerated that story just by a few words. Naruto pointed off in a random direction. He didn't know what Amoy did to piss off this Kunoichi, but it was the least he could do for the pointer that Amoy gave him. She smirked viciously as she rushed off in the direction Naruto gave her. Completely wrong direction. As she too had a sword in her back. It was almost like he attracted the craziest people in the village that he entered. He chuckled to himself. As Naruto decided to, well, talk with the furball. After going through the traditional welcoming by throwing Shikaku a rod for Shikaku to chase it, as his conversation went a lot smoother without Shikaku around, as the Kyuubi really hated him. As Naruto sat down and closed his eyes, they always did this. Who was gonna talk first? What are you wearing on your head? The fox asked, as he seemed rather agitated, as his lips were pulled back in a growl. It's a forehead protector, said Naruto. I know what it is. Naruto opened his eyes and leaned back in his hands. Then Y asked. The red eyes narrowed dangerously. The Kyuubi was pissed for some reason. Why are you wearing it? Naruto raised his eyebrow, wondering why the Kyuubi was so interested in it. It was a gift, and I think it looked good. You look even more ridiculous and pitiful than usual. When did you become a fashion critic? The fox snorted as his clothes were blown back, as they went into another comfortable silence. Only the fox's breathing could be heard, until he asked, what is it that you think you will accomplish by coming here? I have already told you, I want to understand you, to understand why you bear so much hatred. For once the Kyuubi didn't snort or grunt, it didn't glare at him or anything. One of his eyes were open as his head was resting on his paw. Why? Naruto blinked in surprise. This was the closest he came to a whole non-normal conversation with the Biju. Because you deserve a chance to be heard like everyone else. The beast snorted loudly, as he sounded amused by that, like if such a thing was possible for a mere construct of chakra. I have wiped out human settlements over the centuries, killed thousands if not millions of your kind. To your people I am known as a harbinger of destruction and death, like a natural disaster, not an intelligent being. Why would you show me the same courtesy that you do your same kind, when you can barely even comprehend what I am? Because if I don't, then who will? As for a long moment there was nothing but silence between them, until he finally spoke. So what is it that you want exactly? A testament? A confession? Naruto looked up at the fox. How about a story? Very well. We will see what you think when I am finished, the fox said. Around 1,000 years ago, there was a man, like the traveling monks, holy monks that walk around today, like me. The fox glared at him, a glare that said, shut the hell up. However, he was more than just a monk. He could see things others could not. He could do things others found impossible. It took him a great many years to understand his abilities. By the time he was done, a great evil had made his way to the lands that he lived in. The most you need to know is that the beast is called the Jubi. As Naruto remembered when he was first told about the sage and that monster that he was fighting. Many events separate from this story that are switched for another time. But it went down with the sage defeating the Jubi, sealing the Jubi within himself, and becoming the first Jinchuriki. He became known as a great hero, a god to the people. His power was unparalleled to others, even Hoshirama Senju and Madara Uchiha pale in comparison. But even the sage had limits. He was forced to face his mortality. He feared the creature would be freed upon his death, so he took precautions. When he was old and frail, he released the energy, shaping it, splitting it into 9 beams. Naruto gained a sudden look of understanding as the Kyuubi only nodded once. You aren't as simple as you appear. Yes, all 9 Bijus are simply an aspect of our progenitor, the Jubi. As a final precaution, the sage sealed the great beast within a large construct that he made from the earth before throwing it in the sky. Your kind now called it the moon. Wait, that actually happened? The Kyuubi glared at Naruto dangerously once again, daring him to interrupt again as Naruto went quiet. Yes, the sage's power even in his deathbed was unrivaled. I believe he used a line that is known as Mises no Kuni. The fox seemed angry that he had to explain with the human terms. That is irrelevant though. Shortly after giving us life, he succumbed to his mortality, leaving a form in his two sons, the Senju, and the fox grimace, like next words are going to poison his mouth somehow. The Uchihas, he said. For a time there was peace. Men remembered the teaching that the sage had passed on. Slowly, the shinobi system came into way. As a sage teaching, everything was twisted into weapons. They all paled into comparison to what the sage once possessed. But your pitiful kind still tried. The fox dropped his head back to his paws. Then your kind tried to reach beyond their grasp. Tales of the sage faded, and my own kind twisted into different devilish tongues. You saw us out, looking to vanquish and kill us. Like the demons you saw us as. You could not tamper in our powers, so you tried to take it, or extinguish what you couldn't understand. I was forced to watch as one by one they were captured and enslaved. But I was unconcerned. My power was much greater than theirs. My tales, the most at the moment. And pride was my downfall. I believed myself to be the greatest being in existence since the sage himself. He slammed his paw down, and I still am, he said. It took a deep grumbling breath before settling back down in his stomach, fire still burning within his eyes. However, even the mighty fall when they underestimate their opponent. I was fooled to believe that the single human that challenged me was just like the rest of your kind, that I would simply crush him under my tail. However, Mother Uchiha possessed something the rest did not, the Sharingan. As Naruto remembered those red eyes in Konoha, those peeps that would glare at him, that dojutsu that he used to enslave me in the most humiliating manner, that cursed man forced me to fight his battles like some common pet. The Kyuubi eyes were burning with rage, his tails swaying ominously. But he too overstepped his bounds, fighting a man greater than himself, the first Hokage. Then, like the rest of my kind, I was enslaved, forced down by blood and ink. That lasted for a few more decades, and when I finally smelled my freedom, it was ripped away from me once again. I was traded to a new host, passed on like a piece of jewelry. The next decade had proved to be worse than before. He rubbed his paw like he was remembering some phantom injury. I was chained in the dark, impaled all over, unable to even move. When I finally tasted freedom, I was once again sealed within sight of you. Then I discovered this jail was different. I could catch glimpses of the outside world. You say I attacked your village. The fox snorted in amusement. I don't remember it, but I would have taken the utmost enjoyment in destroying everything. Trust me, nothing would have been left behind. As Naruto got to his feet, as he walked forward, the Kyuubi narrowed his eyes towards him. As Naruto walked right through the bars, surprising the fox. As he stopped right at the fox's nose. I am Naruto Uzumaki, a monk of the Fire Temple of Hainokone. I cannot speak for my entire race, nor can I say that they will help me if I did. However, I would like to offer my most sincere apology for my kind treatment towards yours. As Naruto bowed, his head touching the ground, the fox thought about how easy it was to just crush him right here. But he will have to wait a year or two for his body to reform, a decade or two for his strength to fully return. But the possibility was still there. This young boy was bowed in front of him, trusting him, stepping foot inside the seal, as at that moment his face slipped into a small smile before it turned back normal. He snorted, the wind blowing Naruto back a bit. Stop bowing. One who bears a sage eyes should not deface himself like that. As Naruto stood up, the small smile had not been crushed at where he stood. It was a gamble that he took, but he was happy, as he felt like this was a real turning point. Do not mistake my intentions. We are not friends or comrades. I do not like you, and my opinion has not changed about your race. The fox didn't look away, like when noble people did when they were about to apologize for something. However, I would admit you're different from the rest of your kind. Now leave my cell before I crush you into dust. Naruto nodded as he maintained that smile and slipped back between the bars, going back. So, different, in a good or bad way, Naruto asked. The fox looked at him. We shall see, he said. Any chance of me learning your name, then, Naruto asked. The fox snorted. Do not push your luck already. Now be gone. This has already grown tiresome. Naruto simply nodded as he faded away from the seal. He's an unusual one. Seems he has inherited more than your eyes, father, the Kyuubi thought. But guys, and be ending this episode right here. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. But I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace.